How's it going, guys? It's David here. Happy holidays to everybody watching. I'm testing out, as you can see, my Christmas jacket, my ugly Christmas jacket that I'm going to be testing out this weekend, since it is the Christmas weekend, and you can definitely tell that I'm testing it by the tags still attached. I'm still trying to decide as to whether or not I'm going to fully go on with this, but I wanted to see how it looks on camera. I think it's hurting the eyes. It might be hurting the viewer's eyes. I apologize. But with that being disclosed, let's tackle this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was a bottled episode, all centered around our good old techie here from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. team, Leopold Fitz. And boy, last week I proclaimed saying that last week's episode was one of my favorite of the season, if not probably my favorite episode of season 5 thus far. Yeah, that's not entirely accurate anymore, because I was just smiling ear to ear with this episode because it's one of the most well-crafted episodes from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's so far the best one from season 5, and it might possibly be, and this could be argued, one of my favorite of the show ever. So as I mentioned, it's a bottle episode to kind of tackle what Fitz has been doing this entire time, because I think we're kind of overdue for an explanation after last week's cliffhanger of Fitz being revealed among being one of those bounty hunters that's going to be either buying off or fighting against Daisy after pulling off his mask. It's like, oh my god, Fitz was there the entire time. So now it's time for an explanation. How exactly did Fitz get to that time period in that particular location? And we get that thorough explanation here with probably one of the best callbacks / tie-ins that we've seen S.H.I.E.L.D. do in a very long time, and that was bringing back Lance Hunter from the original, well, not the original, but one of the mid-tier S.H.I.E.L.D. team, and one of the more charismatic members of the S.H.I.E.L.D. team through, what was it, seasons 3 and 4, that unfortunately had to leave because Marvel thought that they were going to get their own spin-off series. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out, but it was a cool way to bring back Lance Hunter and tie him very well in to the storyline of Fitz being captured by the government, because they were kind of on the run this whole time, so it kind of makes sense that they were to catch up right after him being left behind, because for some reason he just wasn't on this whole prophecy deal. So there was an explanation behind that, and that really panned out very well executed in this episode, where Fitz is just as confused as we were in that very first episode when things were going in a rather jugged pace, where the characters were just from one place to another and we had no sense of knowing, we had no sense of explanation or reasoning. And Fitz kind of embodied that here in the beginning of this episode, and seeing his internal struggle of being in this security for like 6 months and not knowing where his friends are, it was a pain that I actually felt. And I gotta be honest, it's a pain that I think I felt just a little stronger than I did with even the main S.H.I.E.L.D. team when they first appeared in that station at the very beginning of episode 1 of this new season. There was something about Fitz's relatability and his strength, and also the subtleties in Ian DeCaster's performance, where I remember going back to season 1 or 2 and not being a humongous fan of the kid or his acting, but he has really grown into his own, and I've learned to appreciate the subtleties in his acting, where you can tell that there's pain and struggle behind his face, where he's having a really tough time accepting that his friends, particularly his loved one Gemma, is just completely gone. He has no idea where they are, and he's trying to figure out where they are, while at the same time trying to make up for his mistakes and trying to make up for, as he puts it, his sins that he believes he committed for real in the framework, and that is still something that's living with them. So I'm glad that they're not completely omitting that entire storyline from canon. It's like, no, this is part of who he is now, and he's probably going to be living with it for some time, especially since out of the entire S.H.I.E.L.D. team, he's the one that was fucked with the most from that framework. But not everything can be super massive and depressive like that, so we got to bring in Lance Hunter for the funny, but at the same time, he just oozes charisma. As soon as he appears, their banter between the soccer teams that they were kind of communicating with each other, and seeing how passionate Fitz can be about soccer, it was a really good balance of him always being stoic and serious, seeing him lose his shit towards soccer and then having to vent over that frustration over to Lance Hunter when he first appears, along with that theme music. I love how in this specific episode, more so than any of the episodes we've had in this 5th season, they used the theme very effectively, because it's not just the matter of a Hunter being brought back for this mission, for this escape mission or this infiltration mission to get fits back to that future that he needs to be in, but also with the severe amount of callbacks from the Quinge, or in this case the bus, showing up towards the very end with, again, the fanfare, dun, 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 dun. You know, hearing that music just brought back so many memories, just like it brought back memories to both Hunter and Fitz when they first loaded up back into that bus at the very end of the episode, where they finally managed to take off. But also along the plot, we figure out that the entire relations to prophecies and to why Fitz didn't get sent to the future and to why the rest of the team were sent there to prevent a calamity was because of an Inhuman that we've actually seen before in season, I believe, 4, early on in season 4, where we were dealing with that Inhuman that was able to see people's deaths and was able to contact with Daisy. Actually, I think it was season 3. I'm sorry, season 3, where he contacted Daisy, and then we had that big little MacGuffin to go on for like a good chunk of the season, where we saw some kind of, you know, S.H.I.E.L.D. code floating in space, where a Quinja just obliterated in space, and that signified that somebody was going to die. There's a callback to that, and then they took that element and kind of inverted it into a little girl who is the product of those two parents, who's able to predict this future. And I love just how immaculate the writing was, where the two government agents walk into that house and they look at a picture of that scenario right there and then. It was eerie, it was effective, and it was a good way to just tie so many things really well together that I just couldn't. If I were to put this under a magnifying glass, I don't think I would be, at least immediately, be able to find any humongous plot holes, you know, other than the tried and true element of having Fitz be put into cryogenesis. I was hoping that they would try for a different approach to sending him to the future, but besides that, I love that ultimately it led to a very, very geeky moment, very appropriate moment for the time being, of having that Star Wars callback between Hunter and Fitz when he finally goes into cryogenesis. And after all of that, they're helped out by the least likely person, who is Enoch, that bald man from the very beginning of this episode. My only little nitpick would have been that we could have seen this guy without his human suit, because we clearly know this guy's an alien sent from another dimension or another interplanetary place in time. So I would have liked for him at one point to hold up the bad guys or hold up the soldiers or anything like that, by turning himself into the alien and being able to use his powers or his strength or whatever. That, and also the budget showing just a little bit with that military installation, where they only have like 3 or 4 soldiers on this big, heavily guarded military base. Is like they're just shooting at the bus taking off into cloaking, and I'm like, oh, that looked rather weak. But I understand most of the money went into the special effects for the space stuff, and I think that's where it truly matters. So okay, I'll take that. Besides those things, those little qualms and nitpicks, God, this episode just ended in all the right places. And along the way, they even go as far as to set up a potential villain for, I want to say, either the last third or the last half of the season, because I was actually responding to a comment made in one of the most recent reviews that I did, where they asked me if we're going to stay in the space station for a very long time. Now that we've introduced Fitz, and he's got a plan in motion of how to get people out of there, especially with that capsule. Maybe he's able to replicate the technology of that capsule to maybe rewind time or do something. I don't know. And knowing that he has connections on the other side with Enoch and all that stuff across space and time, maybe there's a way that they can kind of advance that, keep the pace going, and maybe get out of the station probably about halfway through the 22 episode season. And then in the latter half, they're going to take on that lady, that general lady, whoever, the government person who shot down her 2 agents. I mean, that was a big shocking moment for me, to be honest, because the girl asked her, "Are you demoting us?" And I thought she was going to say, "No, you're fired," and just walk out and do that cheesy line. But no, she just pulled out a Glock and shot them cold, point blank range in the head. I was, holy fuck, there's something else going on right here, and I definitely want to know what it's all about. And I think the S.H.I.E.L.D. team is going to be going up against her towards the end of the season. So I don't think we're going to be staying in space all throughout the 22 episodes that the season's going to hold. This episode was really well directed, well acted, great writing with really funny dialogue, really funny moments, but also really caring moments to the characters that had an emotional impact. And most importantly, one of the biggest things that shows should definitely do is to take advantage and use the strengths of prior seasons and not completely forget them, pretend that they never happened. And this episode does all of that excellently. I can barely think of anything that really bugged me about this episode, so for that, I'm going to be giving Rewind a low 9 out of 10. Only because of those nitpicks, but I'll go as far as to say that I stopped watching this episode just feeling so good, and just feeling like if only we can have more episodes like this. Now knowing that our entire S.H.I.E.L.D. team is completely together, I think we can have that charismatic ensemble to go up against Cassius and finally bring this whole plot to its knees. So, let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comments below. Do you think that Fitz shined in his standalone episode? Do you think it was awesome that they brought back Hunter, and as well as all the callbacks to prior seasons? And what do you think that is going to happen within the remainder of the episode? And do you think that they're going to get out of space, or at least get out of this future decrepit, desolate area of the Earth, out probably within the halfway point or 2/3 of the way through the season, finally jumping back into the present and seeing what everything's going down right now and where S.H.I.E.L.D. find themselves in the universe, in the current MCU universe. That's kind of redundant. Do not forget to like and share the video, and also subscribe for future content coming very soon. And I hope you guys all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, because as far as I can tell, there's not going to be an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode next week. I imagine that ABC or whatever, they're going to be doing some kind of New Year's movie extravaganza type thing that entire weekend, so there's not going to be a S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. So I will see you in 2 weeks when we not only get a brand new episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we're going to get one directed by the one and only Coulson himself, Clark Gregg. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all next time. Especially when you get the majority of your minority characters and put them on a side quest mission that was, in my opinion, just a little preachy. When you got Finn, this girl Rose, who happens to be an Asian woman, and then another character who also happens to be a minority. I thought that was just the butt of a joke. And I was like, ugh, does nobody else see this?